Recently, a journalist has stepped forward to talk about how uncomfortable they were interviewing Blake Lively in 2016. Norwegian interviewer Kristi Flaw, who goes by Kirsty, has uploaded her 2016 interview with Blake that was so uncomfortable it made her want to quit her journalism career. Kirsty posted a video simply called "The Blake Lively Interview That Made Me Want to Quit My Job" to her popular YouTube channel earlier this week, and viewers have been left horrified by the 4-minute long footage. In the clip, Blake is promoting the movie Cafe Society and is joined by her co-star Parker Posey. Now, this movie came out in July 2016, and the interview would have taken place around the same time. Now, Blake had actually announced her pregnancy at the Met Gala that May, but appears to take offense when Kirsty starts the interview by congratulating her on her little bump. "Congrats on your little bump," Blake mockingly says back to Kirsty, who visibly isn't pregnant. And also, one of the worst things we've now found out is that Kirsty is actually infertile, so this comment hurt her even more. Appearing to purposely exclude Kirsty from the conversation, Blake and Parker seem to almost ignore her, and Blake seemingly actively avoids to make eye contact with the reporter, and even when she does look away from Parker, she's looking off camera rather than at Kirsty. Once Kirsty's interview time is up, both Blake and Parker appear to roll their eyes and pull a face as she leaves. Now, it was extremely rude and horrible, and people in the comments called them out. Now, in 2013, Jesse Eisenberg did an interview with Romina Puga promoting his new film, Now You See Me. The interview started out rough, but it seemed like Jesse and Romina were both being sarcastic and dry to each other on purpose. Now, this included Jesse insulting her, saying he wouldn't want to find her in a crowd, and that she was the carrot top of interviewers. It seemed like the two were in on it, but afterwards, Romina made a blog post saying, "So I was just humiliated by Jesse Eisenberg. When the 5-minute interview, more like self-esteem butchering, were finally over, I went behind a curtain to wait for the memory cards from the interview. I peeked around the curtain to ask Jesse about his neighborhood in New York. He lived a few blocks from where I used to live, and he immediately says, 'You're still here.'" Now, Jesse was widely slammed on social media for the interview, in which he came across as arrogant and was seen mocking the journalist's questions. Talking to NME, Jesse said he had different memories of the interview, as he found it to be quite fun. "I remember she was laughing. Even after she left, I said to the people in the room, 'What a relief.' Like, that was the most funny, interesting interview I'd had all day. She said I had made her upset. It was like the exact opposite of what my experience was, and I didn't know the appropriate way to handle something that's completely mischaracterized," he added. Now, people said there are people who found the interview quite funny, saying, "Listen, I would never want to upset someone, and if I did upset her, obviously I would have acknowledged that," he added. While walking the red carpet at the 2023 Oscars, Hugh Grant was quickly called out online after an interview with Ashley Graham on ABC's Academy Awards pre-show. When asked by the model what his favorite part of the awards ceremony was, he responded, "It's fascinated, the whole humanity is here, it's Vanity Fair." Now, things only got more awkward as Hugh began unenthusiastically responding with short answers, such as saying he wasn't rooting for any nominees in particular, and stating that he couldn't remember the name of the tailor who worked on his suit. Now, the interview concluded with Ashley asking him about appearing in one of the night's nominated films, Glass Onion: A Knives Out Mystery, in which he made a cameo as the partner of Daniel Craig's detective character. "Well, I'm barely in it," he stated. "I'm in it for about 3 seconds." Now, on top of that, when asked if he had fun shooting the Knives Out sequel, he simply responded with, "Almost." Now, Twitter went crazy calling out his behavior, as it was just a plain awkward exchange. Now, reflecting on the situation a few months later, Ashley told the Sunday Times, "I could tell he didn't want to be there, that was obvious. Before, we were chatting, he was very pleasant, then we started rolling and he was like, 'I don't want to be here,' and I was like, 'Okay, work with me, I get it, but like, work with me.' I was trying my hardest to be my nice, upbeat self, and he gave me what he had," she said. In 2016, Vin Diesel derailed his interview with YouTuber Carol Maria by trying to flirt with her and insisting that she was too beautiful and sexy for him to continue, making her visibly uncomfortable. Now, in the video's intro, Carol addressed the situation, saying, "He began to hit on me in the middle of the interview, saying that I was pretty, and he interrupted the interview 3 times to talk about it. I was laughing, completely uncomfortable. I was not sure what to do," she said. "I just laughed because it was a very delicate situation. I did not like it. At the time, I did not know how to react, but you will see that I was uncomfortable. It was not nice that he interrupted my work. Now in the video, Vin Diesel is seen saying, "Tell me your story, let's get out of here, let's go have lunch." My god, I love her. Now Carol attempted to get things back on track, only for Diesel to derail the interview once again over their shared love of the game Dungeons & Dragons. "Guys, really, look how beautiful she is," he said. "You guys think this is a joke? How am I supposed to sit here while I'm looking at such beauty? She's so beautiful. I'm in love with the interviewer." Yeah, that's definitely not the way to talk to an interviewer. I mean, she was just trying to do her job. Plus, he was married and had children at the time of this interview. It's just gross. Reporter Ali Fedotowsky was asked by her co-host Roxy Manning whether she had bad experiences interviewing celebrities on the red carpet. Ali then said, "Sorry Jake Gyllenhaal, I'm going to Taylor Swift you right now." She then proceeded to say that Jake showed up for the red carpet. "My first red carpet for E! News, he walks up, I'm shaking in my heels. I say to him, 'Hi Jake, who do you bring tonight? Like for a date, like who's your date tonight?' He goes, 'Bye bye,' and walked away from me." Ali then shared that she started crying, fearing that she was going to lose her job after failing to get answers from the actor. However, she then witnessed Jake give another interviewer the same treatment. "There was an interviewer next to me and her question to him was, 'So if you don't get an Oscar for this film, those tattoos should,' because he was all tatted up for his film, and he goes, 'Bye,' and walks away because he is a serious actor," Ali recalled. Now Ali worked for the entertainment news company from 2013 to 2015, and she called the position her least favorite job she ever had. She added, "It was just not for me, it really ate away at my self-confidence," and she also noted that she doesn't have patience for stars who are rude to interviewers. "I've watched so many red carpets because of The Bachelorette and done countless interviews, and I know how easy it is to be nice," she said. But hey, at least he wasn't just rude to her, but still, that's a rude thing to do, Jake. Now Joaquin Phoenix's film Joker did amazing, as it was praised by pretty much everyone, but it appears that he got tired of talking about it. Now Joaquin took home the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Drama for Joker, but do not ask him about it. Now after his win, Phoenix claimed that he was tricked into entering the press room, and he was annoyed at journalists for asking him questions. When asked about his process for transforming into the Joker, Phoenix snapped, "Isn't this old news? I think I've talked about this for 6 months. I mean, right? I feel like I've answered these questions. You want to hear a different version of it? I can try to change it slightly, or what should I do? It was a long process, and there's so many things I just can't remember right now, but I feel like I already answered this question 6 months ago, but thanks for still asking." Then when asked about a potential Joker sequel, he got similarly annoyed, saying, "What do you mean about the possibility of a sequel? Why? I don't care who's saying that. That's awesome and I love whoever says it. I don't think that I've ever done too many predictable things. So if that came up, it's not because we're following some rule book, it's because we feel inspired again to explore the character more thoroughly. That would be the only reason for me to do it, so that's all I can say about that." Now we all know that they did make a sequel, but him responding to these questions like that was just awkward. And in 2017, Selena Gomez was announced to receive the Billboard Music Award for Woman of the Year. Now she received it after she told the world about her kidney transplant, and this was a huge award for her and it should have been made all about her, but on the red carpet she was asked about her ex, Justin Bieber. Now Selena has always been linked to Justin from the moment she started dating him. This understandably has been very annoying, and Selena is tired of questions about Justin. Now during her interview, she was asked how Justin had most influenced her to be the person she was today. Now Selena wasn't having this though, as the day was about her, so she responded by saying, "I don't think anyone truly actually cares." Now some people may think this response was rude, but others thought the question itself was rude. Now she'd been asked the same question about Justin over and over again, and the night was about her, but good for Selena for only discussing what she wanted to.
At number 10, Vincent Gallo. You always have to be mindful of the things that you say. Your words have a lot of impact and can either make someone's day or ruin it. You must be especially careful with your words when you're trying to get ahead in your career, because one wrong move can set you back significantly or even ruin your career altogether. This is what happened with actor Vincent Gallo, as after one too many failed interviews, his career went down the tubes. Vincent was known to be a little outspoken at times, and he had a history of speaking without a filter, but in 2000, during an interview with a New York Post page 6 columnist, Vincent said some things about a former co-star that landed him in some hot water and effectively ended his career. During the interview, the columnist asked Vincent about Christina Ricci, who starred alongside Vincent in the 1998 film Buffalo 66, and when the actor spoke about his co-star, he didn't have the nicest things to say. He told the interviewer, quote, "It was okay when she wasn't drunk on the set. I think she's an alcoholic. It was either that or she was on cough syrup the whole time. I don't like her. She's an ungrateful C-word. But it was okay. She's basically a puppet. I told her what to do and she did it." End quote. After this interview, he faced some minor backlash for making such mean comments, and his film career just wasn't the same after that. At number 9, John Lennon. The Beatles were a huge hit at the height of their fame, but members of the band also faced scandal and backlash, as every celebrity does. John Lennon had his share of controversies, but one that did quite a lot of damage to the band's career for a little while was when he said that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. In 1966, John Lennon did an interview where he was asked all sorts of questions, like how he lives and his interests and so on, but his comments on Christianity is where things got heated. In the profile, he said, quote, "Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. I needn't to argue about that. I'm right and will be proved right. We're more popular than Jesus now. I don't know which will go first, rock and roll or Christianity. Jesus was alright, but his disciples were thick and ordinary. It's them twisting it that ruins it for me." End quote. Now, when this profile was first released in the UK, no one really thought anything of his comments about Christianity, but when the article was republished worldwide a few months later, things got messy when it hit the US. A radio station in Alabama got a hold of John's comments and proposed a ban on the Beatles, refusing to pay their music and smashed their records. This anti-Beatles mindset began to spread further, angering more people, until eventually Lennon apologized and things died down, making for a chaotic few months. Now, before I carry on with the list, I would like to ask you guys to consider leaving a big old thumbs up on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because it really does help the channel out. At number 8, Tom Cruise. After doing an interview with Matt Lauer back in 2005, Tom Cruise had a bit of a career setback that affected him for a while. During this interview, Tom made some pretty controversial comments about mental health, psychiatry, and made some harsh criticisms about actress Brooke Shields. All of this was caused by Tom's belief in Scientology and the fact that he doesn't believe in medication or therapy. While on the Today Show, Tom and Matt were having a discussion about how the actor criticized Brooke Shields for taking antidepressants for her postpartum depression, and Tom would keep trying to shut down anything Matt would say to defend psychiatry, also going on to say, quote, "You don't know the history of psychiatry, I do." End quote. A lot of people took offense to the comments that he made on this topic, saying that it was uncalled for and that someone's mental health shouldn't be discussed, and so he lost some support from fans. Between that and his position in the Church of Scientology, he lost a lot of popularity, leading to some box office bombs that affected his career for a while afterwards. At number 7, Miles Teller. Actor Miles Teller is a very good actor, but apparently he kinda sucks when it comes to doing interviews. He was set up to have a very promising career after starring in the 2014 award-winning film Whiplash, but after a series of underwhelming interviews, his career started to decline. The first of his interview bombs came in 2014 when he spoke badly of his fellow actors, where he said, quote, "I feel like a lot of actors of my generation are not proper actors. I want to break out of that whole group of actors in their early 20s and really start to put stuff down that lets you know I take this seriously." End quote. Also in that same interview, he spoke harshly of actor John Cusack, where he said, quote, "I guess we look alike. We did some similar movies. He was a leading man that wasn't traditionally good looking, who was offbeat and quirky but confident. I get it, but I don't want his career." End quote. The more bad interviews he gave, the more people started to see Miles as arrogant, cocky, and rude, which certainly did not help his career. At number 6, John Mayer. I feel like we really don't hear much about John Mayer these days, and that could very well be due to a 2010 interview that tanked his career and made him receive a lot of hate. During an interview with Playboy magazine, John made a lot of rude, crude, and racist comments that ruined his public image. At one point during the interview, John dissed his ex-girlfriend Jennifer Aniston and also spoke in too much detail about his other ex-girlfriend Jessica Simpson, and honestly, I would rather not repeat what he said because it was really gross. On top of that, John also proceeded to say the N-word several times throughout the interview, as though it was the cherry on top of this whole mess. After facing a lot of backlash for what was said during the interview, he tweeted an apology, but his career just wasn't really the same. At number 5, Alex Pettyfer. Actor Alex Pettyfer was riding a pretty good wave of success after starring in I Am Number 4 and Magic Mike, but behind the scenes he was ruffling feathers in Hollywood after he was described as, quote, "surly, arrogant, and disrespectful" by The Hollywood Reporter. This entertainment news source exposed what Alex was really like after someone who worked with him on set came forward to share their horror stories with the actor. At one point, Alex's career took a pretty big hit, but things became worse after Alex did an interview with V-Man magazine that really set his career back. During this interview, he called out the entirety of Hollywood where he said, quote, "LA is growing on me a little bit, but it's still a hole. I think it's this insidious pool where nearly everyone lives in fear. Geographically, it's fantastic, but socially, it's disgusting. I wish they'd run all the C words out." End quote. After these harsh words and the fact that he's a nightmare to work with, Alex's career just wasn't the same. He wasn't welcomed back to reprise his role in the Magic Mike sequel, and since then, he hasn't really been a part of any major projects in the industry. At number 4, Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf has been having a pretty rough time in Hollywood lately. A few months ago, he was facing backlash after his ex-girlfriend, FKA Twigs, issued a lawsuit against the actor for physically harming her, but before that, Shia had also faced backlash for his unruly behavior both on and off set. What really did him in at one point was an interview he did back in 2008 where he blasted Steven Spielberg after working on Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. This movie itself got mixed reviews at the time of its release, but Shia criticized the film's director, and that's when the hate began for the actor. He told the Los Angeles Times, quote, "I think the audience is pretty intelligent. I think they know when you've made crap, and I think if you don't acknowledge it, then why do they trust you the next time you're promoting a movie?" End quote. He also went on to say, quote, "I'll probably get a call, but Spielberg needs to hear this. I love him. I love Steven. I have a relationship with Steven that supersedes our business work, and believe me, I talk to him often enough to know that I'm not out of line. And I would never disrespect the man. I think he's a genius. I think he's given me my whole life. He's done so much great work that there's no need for him to feel vulnerable about one film. But when you drop the ball, you drop the ball." End quote. Shia ripped on the director later on in 2016 as well, but at that point, the damage was already done. Looks like you can't criticize one of Hollywood's greatest directors and come out unscathed. At number 3, Wilmer Valderrama. Back in 2006, That 70s Show actor Wilmer Valderrama was a guest on Howard Stern's show, and he said some things that he surely regretted saying because after this interview, his career took a pretty big hit. While on the show, the actor shared some information about his private life that frankly, nobody asked for and was very inappropriate. The actor exposed a lot of details about the people that he slept with, going on to reveal that he had slept with Mandy Moore, and even described the experience that no one really needed to know about. He also went on to rate his relationship with actress Jennifer Love Hewitt, and again, nobody needed that information. Wilmer just really exposed a lot of personal information about himself, but faced scrutiny because of how the people he talked about were impacted. A lot of people pointed out how the comments he made were uncalled for, uncomfortable, and inappropriate. It took the actor years to issue an apology for what he said during that interview, but by that time, the damage to his career was already done, and he never quite bounced back. At number 2, Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen was riding a pretty good wave back when he was a star of 2.5 Men, but after his horrible interview on 2020, his career was destroyed and he never fully recovered. After having a hugely successful career, making millions of dollars per season on 2.5 Men, actor Charlie Sheen started to have a downward spiral. Everything sort of came crashing down for him after the interview where he ranted about the 2.5 Men creator, Chuck Lorre. This interview was all over the place with Charlie behaving frantically, going on tangents, and even calling Chuck Lorre, quote, "a turd and a clown." This interview was all over the news because it was chaotic, Charlie was put on blast, and his career just came to a screeching halt. Not only that, but as a result of the comments Charlie made during the interview, he was fired from 2.5 Men, and that was a pretty big deal since this is how he was pulling in so much money. The actor pretty much hit rock bottom after that and never really made his return. And finally, at number 1, Megan Fox. Megan Fox is only now starting to make her way back to Hollywood after she was essentially blacklisted from the industry after she faced backlash for speaking badly about Michael Bay in an interview. Megan criticized the Transformers director during a 2009 interview with Wonderland magazine when she was asked about what it was like to work with Michael Bay. In response to the question, Megan told the source, quote, "He's a nightmare to work with, but when you get him away from set, he's not in director mode. I kinda really enjoy his personality because he's so awkward, so hopelessly awkward. He has no social skills at all and it's endearing to watch him. He's vulnerable and fragile in real life, then on set he's a tyrant. Shia and I almost die when we make Transformers movies. He has you do some really insane things that insurance would never let you do." End quote. Because of what she said, Michael Bay fired her from future Transformers films and made Hollywood turn against her by telling them that Megan was a nightmare to work with. She had a hard time making it in Hollywood until recently when she came out to reveal the truth about how she was being treated in the industry. She's on her way back to Hollywood's good graces, but for a while there, her career was ruined.
In at number 10, Quentin Tarantino.
No, it's my job to try and ask you to.
And I'm shutting your butt down.
And that's entirely your.
What a line! I'm shutting your butt down. Quentin Tarantino was having none of this interviewer's questions, but still tried to go along with it. He kept his cool for about 3 minutes before the gloves started to come off. The journalist's name is Krishnan, and he has become notorious for asking celebrities the most awkward and really big questions about themselves, their past, and their work. Stuff that would be better suited for a 3-hour podcast or an episode of 60 Minutes. However, during these press junkets where they're only doing the interview to sell their film, it's hardly the place or time. In at number 9, Cara Delevingne. Let's just say her dry British humor was not really received by these happy-go-lucky morning news anchors at CBS Sacramento. At the start of the interview, she was asked some very dumb questions. For example, the film Paper Towns was based on a book, so they asked her if she had read the book, and then immediately after made a snide comment about her probably not having enough time to read. Cara obviously takes offense to this judging by her body language, but instead decides to flip it into a joke, saying that she didn't even read the script, just winged the whole thing. The interviewers actually take this as factual for a moment before her laughing finally cuts the tension. And that's not even the most awkward part of this interview though.
I think it probably is us. Well then on that note,
we figured as much.
We'll let you go then. How about that? We'll let you go take a little nap, maybe get a Red Bull. How about that?
After one interviewer asked her why she isn't as excited as her other interviews, she remarks that it's very early and that she thought it was going well, so again, jokingly, she says it must be you. And the interviewer in the middle, like, oh my god, she sounded so bitter. That line of, well, we'll let you go take a little nap and have a Red Bull, how about that? Yes, how about that level of professional journalism? Good job, Good Morning Sacramento. In at number 8, Kourtney Kardashian. After her sister Kim was robbed in Paris, Today Extra, an Australian news outlet, was interviewing Kourtney via satellite from Los Angeles.
Okay.
They asked her how Kim was doing following this traumatic event, but suddenly Kourtney's face just freezes. You then can sort of hear what sounds like her publicist saying, "Do not answer that question."
Looks like Kourtney doesn't really want to go there with that question.
I think she's blanking me. I think she's totally blanking me on that question.
I think there's probably a PR person there saying, you know, don't talk about it.
The interviewer then goes on a bit of a rant saying that she could simply say her sister is doing fine, as they too speculate that she was told to be quiet. However, she then does answer the question on her own, saying, "She's not doing great, I think we're all still shaken up." And her response to what appeared to be her blanking was that the audio from their end wasn't coming through. In at number 7, Jesse Eisenberg.
Do you know the comedian Carrot Top?
Yes. Horrible.
You were like the Carrot Top of interviewers. No, and it's a good thing. It's
I'm
a
gonna
good
go
thing.
cry now.
No, don't cry now.
While promoting the film Now You See Me, Jesse Eisenberg just could not contain his utter disdain for this interview. Right out of the gate, he was on the offensive. The interviewer refers to Morgan Freeman as simply Freeman, for which Jesse takes offense to, oddly enough. He then, as you saw, remarks she's the Carrot Top of interviewing, which insults the interviewer so bad that she hurries Jesse to complete a magic trick just so that they can wrap it up. And the entire interview is just one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen, and this is only number 7 on the list. Trust me though, if you haven't watched this full interview, you must. You must do it. It is just a terrible exchange back and forth between an actor and a vlogger, essentially. In at number 6, Samuel L. Jackson. When you are interviewing a celebrity as big as Samuel L. Jackson, it's imperative that you do your homework. You know, like learn his name. When Sam Jackson was promoting the RoboCop remake, he was asked about a recent Super Bowl commercial he did. Sam replies, "What Super Bowl commercial?" and then hits KTLA reporter Sam Rubin with this.
What Super Bowl commercial?
Oh, you know what? I've admit my mistake.
See, you're as crazy as the people on Twitter.
Jackson then proceeds to say, "I'm not Lawrence Fishburne. We don't all look alike. We may be all black and famous, but we all don't look alike." And Rubin repeatedly apologizes for this very public faux pas, but the damage is done and this just got super awkward. Jackson doesn't let up though. He questions Sam Rubin, saying, "You're the entertainment reporter?" To make his point known, Samuel L. Jackson posted this image on Twitter of him wearing a t-shirt that says he's not Lawrence Fishburne. You know, just to avoid any further confusion. In at number 5, Jim Carrey. At the New York Fashion Week in 2017, Jim Carrey made a rare appearance, and while walking down the red carpet, he did his best to avoid an interview with E! News. At first he tried to kind of twirl around a few times and not really stand still hoping that would work, but she was persistent. Carrey then says he wanted to find the most meaningless event that he could go to, and that's how he ended up there. The interviewer, trying to keep the integrity of this event high, claims that it's a celebration of icons, for which Jim says, icons don't exist, I don't believe in personalities, I don't believe you exist, but there is a wonderful fragrance in the air. And before departing from this awkward interview, he leaves her with this little nugget of truth.
Is relevant, that's not that
Here's
uplifting.
the thing, it's not our world.
None
That's
of this
the
is
key.
real?
Nope.
So you're just passing
We don't
through.
matter.
In at number 4, Dakota Johnson. This without a doubt has to be the cringe heard around the world. We got to watch the live falling out between Dakota Johnson and her mother Melanie Griffith on the red carpet of the Oscars. Oh, the Oscars, please insert fake laughter here. Man, Hollywood is so fake. Just because the cameras are rolling, they fake laugh their way through this entirely awkward interview. And the whole thing started off on a really bad note. The interviewer praises Melanie while repeatedly calling Dakota her little girl, which she is, but it just downplays how successful she's been on her own. Then when her mother is asked if she's seen 50 Shades of Grey, her mom outright says that she wouldn't watch the movie, which clearly hurts her daughter regardless of the content and the positive reviews. A kid is always looking for that recognition from their parents. In at number 3, Robert Downey Jr. This guy again. You remember that interviewer from earlier that was just a little too pushing? Well, he's back again, but this time with RDJ. And didn't I tell you folks earlier that he was known for just having the worst interviewers? I mean, this guy should be questioning politicians, not actors about their upcoming movies. He goes way too deep with Robert Downey Jr. in this interview, to the point where Robert Downey Jr. just says, you know what, we're done here.
What are we doing?
Well, I'm just asking questions, that's all.
Right.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oof, that slapped so hard it felt like a movie. Speaking of slaps, when Downey stands up to leave, he gives Krishnan a very hard pat on the shoulder as if to say, good work, you dummy. The reason why he got so upset was because these questions virtually came out of left field. He went from asking him about superhero movies to Robert's, let's say, tumultuous past. In at number 2, Tom Hardy. If you thought that was hard to watch, just wait until you see this awkward interview with Tom Hardy. At the Toronto Film Festival during a press conference for his film Legend, he's asked by an LGBT news organization about his sexuality, claiming that while his character is upfront about it, Tom on the other hand has been much more ambiguous about his sexuality, which leads to this kind of terrible exchange. It's the epitome of awkwardness.
Are you asking me about my sexuality?
Sure.
Why?
Why?
Thank you.
Okay.
Why indeed. That thank you he gives at the end too, oof, I felt that. Last but not least, at our number 1 spot, Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld is one of the most successful comedians of all time. His show Seinfeld was on television for 9 years, and Jerry's decision to go out on top proved to be one of the most lucrative deals ever for this comedian. Since the final episode, the show has generated over $3 billion in repeat fees, but for whatever reason, Larry King thought they cancelled the show. Even though Larry King worked for CNN, he wasn't known for his hard-hitting questions, yet for whatever reason, he decided to use an interview promoting Jerry Seinfeld's B movie to ask him if Seinfeld had been canceled.
Is this still CNN? I was the #1 show on television, Larry. Do you know who I am?
And you can see in Seinfeld's body language how frustrated he gets when Larry even tries to insinuate this. Jerry does not back down though and immediately goes on the attack, telling King that he was the #1 show on television before adding the very crass line of, do you know who I am? What's the deal with you not knowing who I am?
Number 10, Megan Fox. Megan has been featured in several films over the years, but it was an interview about her time working with Michael Bay on the set of the Transformers movies that canceled her career for good. The original live-action Transformers movie came out in 2007 and co-starred Megan and Shia LaBeouf in the leading roles. It was a fun movie on screen, but behind the scenes there was a ton of tension on set. According to Megan, who had previously worked with Michael on Bad Boys 2, working for Michael was like working for Schmittler. Fun fact, if you add sh to someone's name, you can say it online. Loophole. Of course, Michael didn't appreciate being compared to, you know, one of the worst men in human history, so many speculated that her being left out of third Transformers movie may have had something to do with behind-the-scenes drama. She went on to call him bland and claimed that he had no personality or social skills of any kind. Like, hey Megan, that's just a little bit harsh. It's a little personal. When the comments were made public, her career began to slowly suffer. Not only was she written out of the Transformers series, but she was forced to make a public apology and actually retract her statements following the massive slew of backlash from fans. She took a few years off, but Michael himself later acknowledged the misstep on Megan's part and not only accepted the retraction, but the pair were able to patch things up and work together on the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies from 2014. Yay! Number 9, Cara Delevingne. Cara is a gifted actor and overall seems like a solid human being. So much like the rest of us, she gets tired and annoyed from time to time. Unfortunately, that feeling took place on live TV while promoting her new movie, Paper Towns. While making an appearance on the early morning show, Good Day Sacramento, the interview did not get off to a great start. The program's anchor called her Carla, and she then spent the next few minutes trying to get info out of Cara, but was failing miserably. Falling deep into the anchor role, she pulled out the old, hey, wow, that's amazing. Hey, listen, Carla, did you read the book that this thing's based on, or did you even have time to read because you're so busy? She was having none of that. She was very sarcastic with each answer to the fairly generic questions. Do you relate to the character? What was your favorite moment? Blah, blah, blah. It was then that a third anchor abruptly popped in and asked Cara if she was exhausted, as she seemed a bit more excited to speak about the project a few weeks prior in London. She giggled and said, no, I'm fine. Apparently, the premiere of the film was the night before, which she claimed to feel like the end of an era. But the anchors do not know when to quit. In fact, one of the anchors then suggested that she may be irritated, or maybe it was just them. They then cut the interview short and told her to take a nap and get a Red Bull. She can be heard saying, oh my god, too far, before the news anchor screeches over her and shuts her down. According to Cara, there was really no bad blood. She was just sick of answering the same questions over and over again. Following the interview, the man who popped up and gave his 2 cents was fired for causing such a tense situation on live TV. Number 8, Mike Tyson. Now, I had trouble landing on just one interview to mention when it comes to Mike. He's someone who seems to bounce back even after the most heinous of controversies, so we're just gonna run down through a few good ones. The first time Mike really hurt his career was in the late 80s, and it wasn't even something that he said. He was doing an interview with his then girlfriend Robin Gibbs when the topic of Mike's behavior came up. She said herself that Mike had an extremely volatile temper, and recently reports had surfaced of Mike getting loud and physical with her. Something she seemingly confirmed while Mike was just staring the interviewer down the entire time. Very intense. That was the first little notch on his belt, but as the years went by, more and more controversy came to light. During a press tour for his latest bout in the early 2000s, he lashed out at a fan in the crowd, hurling a slew of insults at him and calling them the British word for cancer sticks. It starts with an F and it rhymes with maggot. The clip became viral overnight and placed his career even further into jeopardy than it already was. But he finally drove the nail into the coffin on CP24 breakfast television in 2014. After somehow maintaining enough relevance to get a one-man show, Mike was sitting down with host Nathan Downer to promote when the interview took a hard left and went from, so what's the show about, to, so should you even be allowed on stage, you monster? That's not what he actually said, but that's what Mike heard. He stopped answering the questions honestly, and he would instead hurl insults sarcastically. The F word is once again his favorite. I don't know if you've noticed, but Mike hasn't been on the news much since that day, and for very good reasons. Number 7, Rachel Zegler. Rachel Zegler's comments about the upcoming live-action Snow White remake could have a huge impact on ticket sales, according to branding experts. The 22-year-old actress has received plenty of backlash after she admitted that she hated the original 1937 movie and branded the storyline weird, while referring to the Prince character as just a straight-up stalker. The backlash occurred after several videos of Rachel speaking negatively about the original film in various interviews last year resurfaced online, where she talked about her version of the character. She said she's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. While Disney may just be trying to modernize the classic, the comments were causing her to be labeled a fake feminist, with some critics accusing Rachel of gaslighting, and one marketing consultant has warned that that Disney will need to be careful on how they have portrayed Snow White. Snow White has already been suffering from backlash well before Rachel made her comments. Peter Dinklage spoke out about Disney not using dwarf actors for the new film, instead opting to use heavy CGI on Hollywood elites. Rachel's role as Snow White is currently up in the air, because while the film is set to be released in March of next year, the writer's strike may be the exact situation that the studio needs to recast and rewrite its oldest character. Number 6. Liam Neeson. Liam may have spent a long time as a dramatic action star, but his most dramatic moment yet came during an interview published by The Independent. He was promoting his new film Cold Pursuit, which follows his character seeking retribution after his son is slain. When he was asked how his character turns to anger, he replied by telling them something primal kicks in when someone close to you is a victim of violence. He then shared a true story about a close friend of his admitting to a physical altercation with another man a few years prior. When he heard the news, he said something took over him. When he asked her if she knew what his name was, she said no, but she knew what color his skin was. After using some very offensive language to describe this man, Liam then admitted to spending the next week carrying around a small baton and praying that, quote, a random black man would cross his path. The article began circulating fast, and Liam received a tidal wave of backlash. Since 2019, he has starred in a few films, but nothing as high budget or universally liked as his previous roles. Number 5. Katherine Heigl. Kathy was riding high back in 2007. The former Grey's Anatomy star not only won an Emmy for Best Supporting Actress in a Dramatic Series, but she also began transitioning into the big screen with the success of her first feature comedy, Knocked Up, alongside comedy legend Seth Rogen. Unfortunately, her rise to the top quickly became a free fall into a volcano following an ill-fated Vanity Fair interview the following January. In the interview, Katherine made a move that still has people scratching their heads to this day. She openly bashed the film that made her famous, claiming that it painted women as shrew, humorless, and uptight, while also placing blame on Seth for writing the men as lovable, goofy, fun guys. The film still sits at an impressive 89% on Rotten Tomatoes because while she may claim that the project was problematic, the final product was a fun love story filled with some pretty solid jokes, and performances, and a great story. Seth felt betrayed by the comments as they never had a fight on set, and it never seemed like she was uncomfortable at any point. These comments, combined with some negativity towards her Grey's Anatomy writers, caused her agents to drop her as a client, and her time in Hollywood slowly came to a halt. These days she stars in the CBS comedy Our House, but it's looking like she may never return to the big screen. Number 4. Brie Larson. Brie was announced as the newest member of the Marvel Universe in 2019, starring in the film Captain Marvel as the titular superhero. At first, people were pretty excited to see what Marvel would do with this property. Captain Marvel is, after all, one of the original cosmic heroes in comic book canon, and I know I'm a nerd, leave me alone. However, when the movie was actually released, fans were pretty upset with Brie's performance. According to them, she was stale and seemed bored from start to finish. When asked about the online hate at the D23 red carpet in 2022, Brie said she's not sure if she's going to continue to play the character beyond her upcoming Captain Marvel sequel, The Marvels. She's aware of all the hate surrounding her character and defends that role by telling people that's how she was told to play the role. But it's also Brie Larson. She's always been stiff, but that's kind of part of why it's funny. Go watch Scott Pilgrim, you ninnies! Overall, she doesn't sound as terrible as some of the other entries on this list, but the way she has responded to interviewers in the past has pegged her as a Miss Marvel meanie. Number 3. Paula Abdul. In 2012, famous judge and British bad boy Simon Cowell decided to fire his fellow X Factor judge after she went on Fox News and made herself sound just a little bit like a fool. During an interview with Q13, things start out a little rocky thanks to some audio issues causing Paula to hear a station in Texas instead of the one that she was trying to talk to. When they eventually got everything up and running, Paula was just as confusing as she was with the original audio issue. The interviewers were trying to ask her about her visit to Seattle, where Simon claimed that the worst singers he has ever encountered dwell. But instead of defending the city, Paula doubled down and agreed with Simon. But it's not the statement though that landed her in the hot seat, it was the way she was speaking. Paula had always been a little bit animated in her life, using her arms a lot when speaking to people, but she was particularly slurry and she seemed like she was under the influence of something. This was just one of several interviews where Paula was noticeably woozy. Simon's actually claimed that the only reason reason she was invited to host on the X Factor in the first place was to see that if she would bring in the American Idol viewers. When that didn't pan out, he realized that the right move to make was just to let her go and move on to greener pastures. Of course, Paula was mad about this and confronted Simon several times, only digging herself further and further into that hole. Number 2. Tom Cruise. Matt Lauer is not just a terrible man who turned out to be a creepy creepo. He was once a popular talk show host in the early 2000s. During an interview with Tom Cruise in 2005, the topic of his scientific beliefs came up that quickly sent Tom into a rant about psychiatry. Somehow the topic got into Ritalin and pseudosciences. I don't know. Tom yelled at Matt about knowing more than him about psychiatry. Like he had some inside information that he was secretly a therapist or something. The interview came at the height of Tom's very public descent into chaotic badness, becoming very famous for his outlandish beliefs and his wish to push them onto other people. The highlight of the interview came when Cruise was asked about his previous criticism of Brooke Shields taking anti-sad time pills, to which he responded by calling her a glib. And I looked up the definition. That means fluent and voluble, but insecure and shallow. This was only one of several interviews from 2005 that we could discuss today. When he was with Katie Holmes, he was a bit of a nutcase. Just ask Oprah Winfrey. Ever since the mid-2000s, Tom's career has been mainly in the Mission Impossible movies, with only a few small roles to fill the gaps here and there. Not the Hollywood superstar that he was aiming to be. And at number 1, Lance Armstrong. 7-time Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong has gone down in history as a man who was unable to ride a bike without his chemical training wheels. In an interview with Oprah Winfrey in 2013, Lance was brought on to discuss the allegations floating around regarding his status as a Tour de France winner. Several sources claimed that Lance had taken performance-enhancing substances to win each of his races, as well as a type of transfusion involving the red life juice that flows inside all of us. Armstrong went on air and fessed up to every single thing that they were claiming he had done. However, he did deny the notion that he was some kind of a mastermind who would control his teammates and force them to join in his extracurricular activities. But amidst his admission of guilt, say that 10 times fast, there was a moment where he tried to pin the situation on his battle with cancer. He wraps it up by saying that he should have tried harder to cancel the culture rather than create more of a problem. He was stripped of all 7 Tour de France titles, and he has since lived in exile among the cycling world. Number 10. John Mayer. John may be known for spending time with the ladies, but it's not all peaches and cream. The musician was doing an interview with Playboy magazine in 2010, and now I know it involves Playboy, who are notoriously provocative, but even they thought this interview was just a bit too much. John gets into some pretty graphic depictions of things that he wanted to do to Jessica Simpson using language that cannot be repeated online. He then ventures off the physical intimacy side of things and instead begins to speak about his, and I quote, hood pass, claiming that he had become so popular among black people that he could get away with anything he wanted. And then he called it an N-word pass. Following the interview, fans were beyond upset at his behavior and his attitude towards women. Many turned on John, making a massive dent in his career. Nowadays, this is one of the only things John is remembered for. Well, that and Your Body is a Wonderland, because it's a pretty catchy song. Number 9, Paris Hilton. Paris is the originator of the phrase famous for being famous. This woman made headlines many times over the years for a little bit of everything. In 2011, Paris appeared on ABC to discuss her career, personal life, and the recent situations that she had been dealing with involving stalkers. During the interview, she revealed a few things about her life that had previously been speculated, like the fact that she used a higher-pitched baby voice on the show Simple Life, but in real life had a much deeper and more serious tone. But the conversation eventually ventures into uncharted waters. The interviewer asked Paris if she felt that her former friend and protege Kim Kardashian had overshadowed her in the eyes of the media. Paris says nothing, looks to her publicist, and goes to stand up. They almost wrapped the interview entirely, but eventually things simmered down and they were able to clear things up. However, the moment stuck with fans of Hilton immediately and begged the question, why is she so uncomfortable to talk about this, and is it because it's true? Well, it turns out that the world answered that question for her, as Kim's show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, made it big, and Paris Hilton's show was canceled after 1 season. Number 8, Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, known for his hilarious personality on and off screen, gave Kat Sadler from E! News and Daily Pop an awkward interview on the red carpet at Harper's Bazaar party in 2017. The interaction started with Jim slowly circling Kat as she attempts to express her confusion and excitement that Jim Carrey was at a Fashion Week event. Was this man, known for being an incredible artist, bringing his talents to the fashion world? No, he was just in a mood. By 2017, Jim had made a name for himself as an oddly serious guy who tended to venture into the realm of energies and universal concepts when he started getting into deep conversations. He started the conversation with, "This is meaningless," and then he continued to say that he wanted to find the most meaningless thing that he could attend that night. The event was a celebration of icons and celebrities, according to Kat, to which Jim said he did not agree, as in he didn't agree with the concept of icons or celebrities. He continues to give a small speech about not believing that people are actually real and that we're a field of energy and that peace lies beyond personality. Sorry, I'm feeling woozy just talking about it. The entire time this interview is taking place, Kat is visibly uncomfortable, just counting down the moment that Jim says something funny or even remotely related to fashion. Instead, he just shares his thoughts, tells her that she has a nice fragrance, and then he walks away. While Jim's career had already started to slow down at that point, the clip became viral and studios were wondering if he was a good fit for any role anymore. Many scripts with his name on it were then rewritten or simply kept to themselves, right up until 2020 when he made a small comeback in the surprisingly fun movie Sonic the Hedgehog. Number 7. Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin is a very eccentric man, and he's genuinely a really just wonderful performer. Her is a weird dramatic movie that everyone should definitely see at least once. While doing press for a film in 2009, Joaquin was making an appearance on the David Letterman show when David noticed the actor had drastically changed since his last appearance on The Tonight Show. He was wearing sunglasses, he had spawned a big beard and long hair, and it sounded like he was chewing gum the entire time. When David asked Joaquin if he was doing alright, he responded with a muffled, "Yeah, I'm okay," in grand Joaquin fashion. This pattern continued as David goes over his accolades and discusses the announcement Joaquin had made a few weeks prior that he was quitting the acting world forever. It turns out that he was planning to shift his focus into the music world, specifically hip-hop, wishing to be a rapper. Does that make sense? After roughly 10 minutes of screen time, the interview wraps up with sarcasm and a clip from his new film, Two Lovers. Following the interview, many were concerned that Joaquin was maybe under the influence of something, or maybe just he was under anesthesia because he was so quiet and dark and anyway. But it turns out that he was attempting to perform a spoof. According to Joaquin, the entire incident was staged to promote another film that was in the works called I'm Still Here, where the character in the film acts in a very similar manner. Despite the reveal of this being a staged interview, it only made Joaquin look like a wacky whack job. Number 6. Megan Fox. Megan has been featured in several films over the years, but it was an interview about her time working with Michael Bay on the Transformers set that canceled her for good. The original live-action Transformers movie came out in 2007 and co-starred Megan and Shia LaBeouf in the leading roles. Now, it was a fun movie on screen, but behind the scenes there was a ton of tension. According to Megan, who had previously worked with Michael on Bad Boys 2, working with Michael was like working for Schmittler. Fun fact, if you put sh in front of someone's name, you can say it online. Loophole. Of course, Michael didn't appreciate being compared to one of the worst men in human history, so many speculated that her being left out of the third movie may have had something to do with the behind-the-scenes drama. She went on to call him bland and claiming that he had no personality or social skills of any kind, which is just rude. When the comments were made public, her career began to slowly suffer. Not only was she written out of the Transformers series, but she was forced to make a public apology and retracted the statements following the massive slew of backlash. She took a few years off, but Michael himself later acknowledged the missteps on both their parts and not only accepted the retraction, but the pair were able to patch things up and work together on the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies. Awesome! Number 5. Jesse Eisenberg. Jesse may not be the busiest bee that he once was, but that's probably because when he's off camera, he's a little stingy with the details. While doing an interview with Romina Puga for her online series Say My Name, Jesse was promoting his new film, Now You See Me. From the moment the camera rolls, Jesse is just obviously annoyed with the situation and with Romina herself. When she refers to Morgan Freeman as Freeman, he asks if she's on like a baseball team with him or something. What's wrong with referring to someone by their last name, huh? Eisenberg continued to poke fun at Romina as she attempted to do some sleight of hand magic, accidentally revealing some scribbles written on her palm. Jesse berates her for being so forgetful that she had to write things down on her hand and then asks her not to refer to Morgan Freeman as Freeman again. When she asks Eisenberg to do a card trick he learned on set, he compared Romina to the comedian Carrot Top, who's universally panned as a terrible comedian. If you're watching this, I'm really sorry, Carrot Top. Also, Carrot Top watches my videos? When the trick is done, Ramina doesn't play along, further frustrating Jesse beyond belief. What's funny about this interview is it actually impacted both people involved. While Jesse continues to work, it's in a much smaller capacity, and his hits are few and far between. Meanwhile, Ramina received lots of flack for delivering such a bad interview that she eventually stopped doing the show altogether. Number 4. David Letterman. Now, David Letterman has been around for a long time, and while he did eventually get replaced with Stephen Colbert, it was after many, many years of being extremely odd towards his female guests. There are several examples over the years of David being just a little bit too intimate with his guests, including a time when he would not stop telling Jennifer Aniston how good her legs looked in her dress. He literally told Madonna to go kiss a man in the audience. He called Keira Knightley a lovely offering. He told Dolly Parton that he wanted to see her sweaty. The list goes on. It took way too long for someone to realize that this man was just a bit too open at times, sharing way too much information. One thing he continued to do right up until he retired in 2014 was show revealing or intimate photos of his guests without their knowledge. Like when Emma Watson was forced to explain a wardrobe malfunction after David pulled out a photo from a recent red carpet event. He brushed people's hair, he made dirty jokes, and seriously, this dude was obsessed with legs. In fact, one of the last interviews to ever take place on the show with him was with Jennifer Aniston, and he just sat there complimenting her looks for basically the entire thing. While his career was never destroyed, I thought that it would be worth a mention because this is a list of people who have done some scummy stuff on the air, and David is no exception. Number 3, Robert Pattinson. Now, I will be using the term destroyed loosely here, as this incident did destroy his reputation, but he was eventually able to make a comeback. In 2018, while promoting the Twilight sequel New Moon, Robert made an appearance on the Tyra Banks show alongside his co-star Taylor Lautner. Now, things are going smooth until something takes Tyra over. She tells Robert that she wants him to bite her right on the neck, like a vampire. Well, Rob hesitates for about 3 seconds and then chomps down on Tyra for a moment. The clip is lighthearted and Tyra is fueled with joy, but according to members of the production team, Summit Entertainment was not happy. Robert was scalded by the director and his team of agents who had not given Robert the green light to bite a woman's neck on television even if she literally asked him to do it. This caused a lot of personal issues for the people on the Twilight team, as they wanted their film to be seen as a serious dramatic piece, yet Robert was playing vampire for fun with Tyra Banks. As I said, this interview did impact his career, but in a different way. As the Twilight movies continued, Robert was offered small roles here and there, but thanks to this interview with Tyra, he was no longer some young-faced actor the studio could just manipulate. He was Robert. His career eventually picked up outside of the young adult book world, and he is now a very bankable man in Hollywood. Number 2, Katherine Heigl. Kathy was riding high back in 2007. The former Grey's Anatomy star not only won an Emmy for Best Supporting Actress in a Dramatic Series, but she also began transitioning into the big screen with the success of her first feature comedy, Knocked Up, alongside comedy legend Seth Rogen. Unfortunately, her rise to the tippy top quickly became a free fall into a volcano, following an ill-fated Vanity Fair interview in 2008. In the interview, Katherine made a move that still has people scratching their heads to this day. She openly bashed the film that made her famous, claiming that it painted women as shrew, humorless, and uptight, while also placing blame on Seth Rogen for writing the men as lovable, goofy, and fun. The film still sits at an impressive 89% on Rotten Tomatoes because while she may claim that the project was problematic, the final product was actually a really fun love story filled with some solid jokes, performances, and a great story at its core. Seth felt betrayed by the comments as they never had a fight on set, and it never seemed like she was uncomfortable at any point. These comments, combined with some negativity towards her Grey's Anatomy writers, caused her agents to drop her as a client, and her time in Hollywood quickly came to a screeching halt. And at number 1, Kanye West. Kanye was slowly going mad in the eyes of the public way back in 2010. As the years went by, he made more and more appearances on TV, but it wasn't until 2018 where his political beliefs got him heated on Jimmy Kimmel Live. When Jimmy asked Kanye how he felt about the response to his decree that he was all for President at the time Donald Trump, he was largely criticized. He defends his statements by claiming that he did not have to conform to some united mindset and that he was a little bit upset at the backlash, but that a part of him kind of enjoyed the hate. He then suggested that the world world was in a simulation, claiming that it's filled with unpaid actors. The over 20-minute interview is filled with metaphors, the concept of love, and a comparison of himself to the Son of God. This interview was only a short time after his anti-Semitic tweets were circulating the internet. He even makes a joke about the anxiety of asking his publicist to appear on the show. He was fairly calm in his delivery of his opinions, but he made sure his opinions were known. Number 10, Hugh Grant. In 2023, the world was gifted with an awkward interview between model Ashley Graham and Dungeons & Dragons star Hugh Grant. Ashley was trying her best to give a good interview and ask Hugh the hard-hitting questions. Like, who was he wearing? Was he excited to be there? Did he hope anyone won? You know, the generic questions they tell you to ask on day one. Hugh was not budging, to the point where she just kinda gave up and let him loose. One of her last questions to Hugh was regarding his cameo in the Netflix film Glass Onion, which he says was barely a full day on set. The incident sparked a ton of backlash, mainly aimed at Hugh for making Ashley's job more and more difficult because he wasn't even responding to that first round of questioning. But then the narrative switched to, why wasn't she asking him better questions? ABC decided that the hosting gig was going to go to somebody else next year, and it's looking like she won't be making any more interview appearances anytime soon. Number 9, Rachel Zegler. Rachel Zegler's comments about the upcoming live-action Snow White movie could have a huge impact on ticket sales, according to branding experts. The 22-year-old actress has received plenty of backlash after she admitted that she hated the original 1937 movie and branded the storyline as weird, while referring to the Prince character as a stalker. Not wrong. The backlash occurred after several videos of Rachel speaking negatively about the original film in various interviews last year that resurfaced online, where she talked about her version of this character, saying that she's not going to be saved by a prince and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. While Disney may just be trying to modernize the classic, these comments were causing her to be labeled as a fake feminist. Some critics accused Rachel of gaslighting, and one marketing consultant has warned that Disney will need to be careful with how they've portrayed Snow White. Snow White has already been suffering from backlash well before Rachel made her comments. Peter Dinklage spoke out about Disney not using true dwarf actors for the new film and instead opting to use heavy CGI on Hollywood elites. Rachel's role as Snow White is in the air as of filming, because while this film is set to release in March, the writers and actors strike set production back, so who knows, maybe they recasted her in the background while we weren't paying attention. Number 8, Adam Driver. Adam Driver is an incredible actor, and I personally got to see him perform for the first time in a little rom-com alongside Daniel Radcliffe called The F Word. If you've never seen that, check it out, it's a great movie. And then I saw Star Wars. Okay, don't worry, I know that he's Kylo Ren. This year, Adam had the chance to play one of the creator of one of the fastest and most recognizable car brands in the entire world, Enzo Ferrari of Ferrari cars. The film has been receiving some pretty solid reviews, following in the shadows of films like Ford v Ferrari from a couple of years back. It seems like we might get a cinematic universe of stories behind popular car brands. There's a DeLorean movie, there's this movie, they should just make a movie about Subarus next. My parents love Subarus, they're great cars. While doing press for the film, Adam was involved in a Q&A that resulted in one of the best Adam Driver clips to ever exist. A man in the audience asks Adam how he feels about stunt racing scenes, as they are pretty intense, harsh, and honestly, in their opinion, cheesy. Cheesy? Adam doesn't like that word. He sips his water, and with very little hesitation, he says, I don't know, F you. Next question. The clip became viral very fast, and people are actually praising Adam for his response. People at these events are given a rare chance to speak with actors, directors, and everything in between, so when someone takes that precious time just to tell you how they feel about something and to see if you agree, it's just a waste of time. Number 7, Pedro Pascal. Pedro is another treasure in this world. Not only has his energy and genuine personality been showcased in his TV and film roles, but he's become one of the most recognizable faces in meme culture. He's also been involved in projects from every genre: comedy, action, horror, and now live-action video game adaptations thanks to the Last of Us series. Earlier this year, he was attending the premiere of Season 3 of The Mandalorian, and an interviewer stopped him on the red carpet and asked if he might like to read some thirst tweets to the camera. This was unprompted and never confirmed to be okay with Pedro beforehand, before he was put on camera. Pedro took the piece of paper that he was handed. It contained the tweets. He giggled, took a moment to read it over, and with a big smile on his face just gave them a sincere no, and then called the comments too dirty to read. But being the man that he is, he told them that they were doing a great job and that those were some thirsty tweets. He was not insulted by this interaction at all, and if anything, it's just another clip that showcases how much of a gem this man really is. Number 6, Dax Shepard. In September of this year, an individual named Jonathan Van Ness, or JVN, made an appearance on Dax's podcast, Armchair Experts. JVN rose to fame after appearing on the series Queer Eye and has continued to work in several sections of the beauty and fashion industry for years. While speaking with Dax, known best as a comedic actor from movies like Employee of the Month and Idiocracy, he actually ended up bringing JVN to tears thanks to his comments towards the concept of transitioning and gender-affirming care. During the conversation, Dax wished to debate both sides, to which JVN responded with several well-researched points. Dax's views have always been questioned, as they seem to be based in misinformation and are actually anti-trans in general. Towards the end of the conversation, and after JVN basically had to defend their beliefs over and over again, Dax apologized and acknowledged that he should not have put JVN in that position. Jay expresses their exhaustion of having to justify these comments and fight for the rights of younger people who are transitioning. JVN is just very passionate about youth, especially being accepted and involved in as many activities and interests as possible in their lives. Dax has been called out for his comments when the entire point of the podcast was to discuss JVN's own podcast, so you might say he went a little off topic. Number 5, Tony Danza. Modern audiences may not know much about Tony Danza, but if you're a fan of the 80s and 90s, this man will have come across your screen once or twice. Starring in shows like Taxi and Who's the Boss, Tony dominated the sitcom scene for a solid portion of his career. Earlier this year, at the Broadway premiere of New York, an interviewer named Rye Myers asked Tony a question about New York that left Danza branded as one of the rudest celebrities in the world. He was simply asking Tony what his favorite NYC staple food was. Pizza, hot dogs, what makes Tony tick? Instead of answering the rather simple question and just moving on, he took a moment to pause and tell Rye that he should get better questions, and even told him to relax. The clip went viral and people quickly began supporting Myers. Even the great Michael Bublé chimed in to let him know that he loved him and was ready to share a pizza with him at any time if Tony wasn't invited. Tony actually reached out later on and apologized for his response, deciding that he ultimately wanted to squash the beef. Things were patched up, but that is still an extremely rude and awkward moment. Number 4, Doja Cat. The Met Gala always seems to bring in some truly memorable moments, whether it's an outlandish outfit or an interview where they just meow the entire time. It's a weird place to be. Yes, Doja Cat went to the Met Gala in 2023 dressed as a cat. She literally had prosthetic nose on her face and prosthetics on her eyebrows, all the while wearing a sparkly silver dress with little sparkly ears on top. Emma Chamberlain decided that Doja was the woman that she needed to interview. No one else. Doja Cat was the one, which ended up being a very bad decision. Great, well, bad for her, great for us. Doja responded to every single question that this woman asked with a resounding meow. At one point, she actually attempts to tell a story and meows a few times with different tones, like meow, meow, meow. The entire time, the guy who is standing with her is just kind of like, yeah, that's Doja Cat. She's been doing this for a month now. The moment was honestly more entertaining than rude, but I'm not sure if this was planned beforehand or not. If it was, great meme, good job. If it's not, this is horrible, and Doja, you need to chill. Number 3, Liam Neeson. Liam may be known for his serious roles and for being, one of the worst parents in cinematic history, but this year he was known as an uncomfortable man thanks to his appearance on the show The View. Appearing to discuss his career and potential projects coming down the line, the conversation shifted after one of the hosts, Anna Navarro, jabbed Joy Behar about her crush on Liam Neeson, saying that there was at least one woman on this panel that would love to be taken by Liam. Ew. The show then played a supercut of all the times that Joy has spoken about Liam, including a time when she said that she would want to have her ashes sprinkled over him, and another bit where she admitted to getting a little aroused when she saw him on screen. Liam joked at first, asking Joy if she received the checks, insinuating that she gets paid every time she talks about him. Following the interview, Liam felt the whole thing to be a little bit of a waste of time. The segment about the crush was long and is a crush that materialized like 15 years ago. Eventually, he had a normal conversation, but overall it was just a little uncomfortable. Number 2, Chloe Fineman. For anyone who does not know Chloe Fineman, I'm sorry. She is currently working as a cast member on Saturday Night Live, and she's genuinely doing a great job and is hilarious. Fortunately, earlier this year, she was involved in a red carpet interview that proved how little she actually knew about some of the celebrities involved with the event she was at. Fineman hosted the Vogue live stream of the 2023 Met Gala alongside Derek Blasberg. The pair were eventually joined by Aubrey Plaza, Madeline Klein, the designer of many dresses from the evening, and Stella McCartney. As the interview began, Feynman attempts to introduce the women that she's interviewing but fumbles all of their names, one of them on purpose. Instead of calling them by their first names, she refers to Madeline and Stella as McCartney and Klein. She then calls Aubrey Plaza Audrey, and Plaza improvised her own last name, Slutburn, which may have to be bleeped out, but I really hope it's not. Chloe and Aubrey actually know each other very well and have worked together a few times. Chloe and Aubrey actually know each other really well, and they've worked together a few times in the past, so this was clearly just an inside joke. McCartney was having none of these shenanigans though. Chloe instinctively laughed when someone makes a joke, so when the women kept responding to the questions, "What are you wearing?" with each other's last names, she had to giggle. McCartney asked her if she was taking this seriously, and the tension dissipated only when she asked McCartney about taking over for Karl Lagerfeld, the designer that the night had been themed after. Yeah, I don't know how to say his last name, please don't comment about it. The moment was tense, and we're sure Chloe was happy to get back to world of sketch comedy as soon as possible. And at number 1, Jada Pinkett Smith. Every single interview that this woman has ever done has had some kind of shade or hidden meaning behind it, whether it's trying to patch things up with someone on her own little Facebook talk show that hurt her, or just telling the world every single dirty detail about Will Smith that she knows. This woman is a menace who makes for uncomfortable interviews and moments every time she is on screen. This year alone, she outed her marriage as a sham, claimed Tupac Shakur was in love with her, and wrote a book about everything in between. Don't buy it.